Hey there, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And somebody recently wrote me a note, and that's what is inspiring this particular video, because they know I'm into the woo-woo stuff. So they said, well, do you think Chris Watts and Shannann were soulmates or twin flames? And, I was like, she wanted me to answer that. And I said, well, that's not a simple answer. But what I am going to do in this video is I'm going to define what they are and then give you some ideas about what that application may be in terms of this particular case. And it might be interesting down the line to look at it with other cases as well. Because one of the things that you want to look at is the difference between a soulmate and a twin flame. And also there's people who get together, right, where we talk about things, and I wrote this down because I was like, people get together for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I think we have to look at that as well. That, and I'm looking at my notes here because I wrote, let's see, what went wrong? The reason, season, lifetime. Okay, so here's where I want to differentiate. Let me start by saying the typical idea of a soulmate is that a soulmate is someone who helps you grow. And by the way, a soulmate does not have to be there for the rest of your life. They can be someone who was a mate to come in to help you learn something, to learn some aspect of your life that perhaps you didn't know before. Anyone can be a soulmate in your life. And I have a theory about that. Oh, here I go, yawning. For those of you who don't know, I yawn when energy is moving through me, when the spiritual stuff and all that. Okay. A soulmate can be anyone who is in your life, I believe, for 20 minutes or longer. And why do I say that? Why would I say that? Because sometimes you'll be sitting, and I've had this happen. I remember sitting in the airport and there was a woman sitting next to me. We're all kind of like sitting there eating, you're not kind of like, this is my table. So I was sitting next to her and I felt this really strong energy. And I looked at her and I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm all right. And I said, what's going on? She said, oh, I'm just, overwhelmed. And I said, sometimes, and I get that way too, because there's so much going on. And I said, I know we're overly bombarded by things. And, the thing I try to remember is that, God works in mysterious ways, and this is where I'm at right now. And just to breathe, sometimes that's the best you can do. And she stopped and she looked at me and said, that's really interesting. I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, because I mentioned breathing a couple times, and just breathe and just relax. And that's what I try to do. And she said, well, I have a relative that just passed away from a breathing disorder, from asthma and all that. And she said, I'm going to the funeral. And I said, yeah, I said, I understand what that's like. And we talked for a minute or two. And then I said, I had to get my flight. And she said, thank you. This really helped me. And, what I was reminded of is that God comes to us and validates us through soulmates. He validates what we already kind of on some level know already, but that's how it happens. So what we're going to do, that's a soulmate. And we're going to look at twin flame, and then we're going to look at Chris Watts and Shannann. Okay, so the first thing to understand is that one of the things I talk about a lot is that relationships formed in sickness don't always survive health. So what you have is when two people are kind of like acting out their stuff with each other, if one person starts to get well, this person, right, as that person pulls away, that person can just shut it down, kill it, or attack it. So you want to keep in mind that that's where we're hearing about from crime, is that people who have like these ill situations going on inside, and the other person starts to get well. So now let's look at twin flames. Now, a twin flame is believed to be one soul that in heaven split apart, and these souls find each other on earth and they become a twin flame. Like together they burn brighter, and that's kind of the love everybody's looking for. That's kind of the, and I have friends that have that. My friends Monty and Amy have that. Very much twin flames. If you watch them together, you can see the twin flames coming off of each of them. It's really interesting, energetically I'm talking about. Very compatible, lifelong partners. There's a lot, and that's not to say people don't have issues. It's more that you can see the energy of a twin flame. Sometimes you can see the energy of a soulmate because it's like, oh, we're so perfect together and everything's great. Sometimes I find that soulmates tend to talk about how great it is, whereas twin flames are just that way. And there's also a sense of superiority sometimes with certain soulmates. They kind of go, yeah, we've got it. It's too bad you don't, that kind of thing. And so in that sense, you've got these two different energies. Remember, a soulmate is always there for growth. Here's what happens in relationships with soulmates. If you get into a romantic relationship and you've met a soulmate, they are going to help you grow. And I like to say they either go or grow together. So what that means is every partner is going to have your dad's issues. Every partner is going to have your mom's issues. The thing is, can you move past them and can you grow into really who you are in the particular moment, in that particular relationship? That's what makes soulmates live on. That's what makes them deepen and grow, is they recognize that this person's human, they have issues like, I want to say, traits like their mother or father, and they learn to love those traits and appreciate them for what they are. That allows them to then be the mirror for each other and reflect those wonderful vibes, right? So let's take a look at Chris Watts and Shannann. Now, I want to say this because I think that this is an important, this is an important thing here. This is just my opinion. It's what I'm seeing. It's the energy I see. And I always say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. You have every right to have your opinion. Please don't attack me or other people because trolls are just taken off the page. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Chris Watts, if we look at the relationship between he and Shannann, we can look at them both on two levels. One, remember what I just said, relationships formed in sickness. Now, remember that when the relationship was formed, Chris Watts was the caretaker, okay? And Shannann was the ill one who needed help. Now, in most healthy situations, you will have, as she got healthier, in her physical stuff, as she started to work on that and she got into other things, what would happen in a healthy situation, right? A situation where people are going to grow together. Let me put it that way. Where they are going to grow is that it might be that this person, Chris, would be able to articulate and say, I feel like you're surpassing me. I feel really like in upset over the money thing. I think there's a lot that was suppressed with Chris. I also think when we look at these two people, let's take a look. We know that they were not twin flames. And I say this from my heart in the sense that twin flames light together. The truth is that Shannann was going off in this way and Chris was not. He was Chris. He was going to stay on this trajectory, right? So her healing outgrew, right, where he was. And as sometimes happens, people outgrow the other person and then they're trying to help them up through the whole thing. And what does that look like? It looks like being pushy. It looks like being demanding. It looks like that person's doing everything. It looks like they have issues and they're pushy, right? They're the boss. Because this other person is, in a sense, has that anger of doing nothing. And what's really funny and what I'm really starting to feel in that particular case, and the more I get distance from it, honestly, the more we get distance, the more information we have. But the more I look at this as these two people, they were no longer mirrors for one another. Soulmates are mirrors. They both wanted the same things, remember? He always wanted a family. She wanted the family. They probably discussed that while she was ill. She immediately, now look at this very carefully, she endangered her own life because she was ill. She had lupus. She endangered her own life to have a child. And Chris let her do it. So that's the first thing we're looking at. There was no talk about that. We didn't hear anything from him about that. Instead, he's just turning a blind eye to her illness that could kill her from having a baby. He also turned a blind eye to the fact that they had huge money issues that obviously came from some of the stuff that Shannann was doing, and Chris. I mean, I don't want to say one or the other, but I want to say that, you know, it may have been that he said he had the money issue and she said he had the money issue, but the truth is they played this game together. So here's what happened. They're mirrors of each other, right? And I'm not, by the way, I'm not bitching either one of them. I'm really just saying, and I won't, because I feel like, you know, they, in their time, they loved each other, okay, in their time. Now, what happens is when you look at a soulmate, when a soulmate outgrows you, the relationship begins to fall apart. So this soulmate kind of started to outgrow because she was getting healthier. And this soulmate tries to stay and tries to keep bringing her back to this, see, so that you start to have this energy. Now, what was interesting is when you look at the children they created and you look at Bella and Cece, I don't know about you, but when I looked at them, I kind of, and I did a video on the face reading for Cindy Watts with my friend Lara, and that's on my Patreon page. But one of the things that we talked about is how the children already looked like angels. They already looked like they weren't of this earth. They already looked like they were ascending to something. I mean, these children were like amazing. And in some ways, not like what I would say, you know, is just like, oh, that's just a kid. When you look at Bella's face, you see, whoa. Now, soulmates teach each other. But here's something else that I want to point out to you. In a case like this, what we might look at is that the lesson of the murder, his murder of his wife, may in fact not be about their soulmate connection. It may be a different connection. In other words, it may be about the soulmate connection with his mother. I want you to think about this. Remember that Chris Watts, when you marry into a family, you're marrying into a family that are soulmates because you're going to know them longer than 20 minutes. They become part of your heritage. You're taking a name. You're going into that family. And that's why I often believe that adopted children are very much part of the DNA of the family they're adopted into, because there's an energy that morphs and shifts. So if we look at a soulmate connection here, what if the soulmate connection with Chris Watts is really that soulmate connection with his own mother? You see, I think that they had a soulmate connection and Shannann had a soulmate connection with Chris, but you see, her level, Cindy's level with Chris was the same. Shannann started outgrowing it. When he takes out this one, he now returns back to the soulmate connection that will always be there for him. So some people can't grow past that. He was unable to see in Shannann his mother. He could not overcome, if you will, the criticism that he would face from Shannann about having an affair, cheating on her while she's pregnant. He couldn't handle it. And in a sense, notice he's like, and he does this crazy thing. And then all of a sudden he's like, yes. And then this is what I did to my kids. And it's like, what? Because what's happening energetically, and I'm only speaking spiritually in the soulmate idea of he then can return to the original soulmate and stay there forever. You see that the lesson in this soulmate conversation may not be for Shannann. It may not be for Shannann's family. I'll talk about her in a second, but it may actually be that the soulmate connection is, if you will, if we look at a test of faith, so to speak, right? So we look at, and I'm going to talk about Sandy Rushek again, because I think she's an important character in this, if you will, and I don't mean to call her a character, but a part of this in the sense that she always loved Chris, but obviously she hates what he did. But she really was a walking testament to that energy of the soulmate, the passion, the caring. And that's not to say that she didn't hate what he did. She didn't hate what happened. She's not in grief. It's to say that Chris really had a family of soulmates over here with the Rusheks that adored him. Think about this for a minute. They accepted him on his own terms. Her father loved that he changed her tires. He knew what to do with the car. Her parents embraced Chris Watts. He was the soulmate to that family. He had an opportunity to go or grow, and he couldn't grow. Now, what happens is that's because his connection with the original soulmate may have been too strong. Now, I want to say this because a lot of people get on there with me and they go, oh, Cindy Watts is a nice person. And what? I tell you what, Jeffrey Dahmer was very nice. And I'm not saying she's a Jeffrey Dahmer. What I am saying is that there are a lot of people out there who are nice people who have a dark side or who do evil acts or who really don't know how to behave. And I really think Cindy Watts is one of those people that doesn't know how to grow. When we look at where she's at, she's going to be a nice person. She's going to be Cindy for the rest of her life, but she isn't someone that is trying to evolve herself or her family. She wanted Chris back in the fold and she got him. Now, it's probably not in the form that she wanted, but when we look at how soulmate relationships help you grow, let's look at what Shannann did for many of us. Shannann became a soulmate for many, many, many of us who want to better ourselves. We want to be honest in our lives. We want to speak up. And I think that's something I really will always admire when I look at some of her videos and she says, I'm really working on myself here, and this is something I want to change. And I went, wow, girl, I love you, because those are the friends you want. So when you think about a soulmate, what I want you to think about with Shannann Rushek is that she's someone that really is, in some ways, a universal concept of a soulmate, because she's someone that's really trying to work on herself. She's really trying to evolve. And if you notice, I'm talking about her in present tense, and I'm talking about Chris Watts in past tense, because you see, when we step up into who we are in our fullest, and by the way, Shannann can look, if you look at the text, you look at what was going on between, she could look crazy, but she wasn't. She was a woman trying to save her marriage. She was a woman who was pregnant with the man she loved's child. And the thing is that just because he wasn't capable of it doesn't reflect badly on her. What it shows us is how much she saw who he was. She tried to protect him. She tried to become the wedge between he and his mother. She often said in her text, I protected you from your family. Well, the truth is that he could not grow. And when a soulmate can't grow, they go. It really becomes that simple. They really are that person that has to go. And so sometimes when we're saying things or we're evolving, I remember that, one of the classic things guys say to a girl when they're breaking up is, I can't give you what you want. That's just a way of saying, I don't want to be with you, right? And so that will say to a woman, because she does want something, in this case, let's say, she does want something, which means he's really not the soulmate, because he's telling her, I'm not your soulmate, basically. I'm not someone that wants to grow my soul with you. And I think that Chris Watts was so weak, he was incapable of saying that to her. Now, does that make him, the thing is that she and he chose each other, reason, season, lifetime. My sense is that sometimes we stay long after the affair is over. Chris and Shanann, my sense in a soulmate connection, they got together for him to learn how to uplift a woman and really help her feel good. If you really look at it that way, that's where the split apart happened. Once she started getting healthier, he stayed long after the affair was over, because she had already, once she was getting healthier, she outplayed him at every turn. And he was not capable of up-leveling with her. So what happens is when you're no longer reflecting, he was trying to learn how to heal a woman, right? Because he kept feeling, in a sense, he could never help his mother. Look at all the mean things she did. He knew that with Shannann, he would get some praise. He would get the validation that his mother never gave him, but ultimately he could not see in Shannann his mother. When he actually started to see some of those qualities emerging, he started getting more and more frantic. And of course, you know, what did he do? He was trying to break away anyway because he found NK. So when we look at how that was happening, she grew, he needed to go. So when I say this to you, what's our takeaway? What is it that we're looking at? When something's season is over, it's over. You wouldn't keep a potted plant that's dead, right? You wouldn't keep like a pot with dirt and an old root that won't grow. But yet we keep people in our lives that we're not growing with anymore. And, you know, one of the best things I heard about this was a friend of mine who's just gorgeous, of course. And it was in LA, and she said to me, you know, she had a great 10-year marriage, great guy. I mean, great guy. And one day she came downstairs. She's Christian, and she came downstairs, and of course the divorce thing, right? She came downstairs, she looked at her husband and said, you know, you're great and I'm great, but we're not growing together. And we're not becoming the best we can be. And he went, you're right. And she said, I think we need to separate and be the best we can be. And he said, okay. They actually separated and divorced. He met a great woman that was like just perfect for him. She met a guy that she married. She got married within 8 months, by the way. And she's been married now for, I think, about 12 years to that guy. They have kids. I'm saying this to you because now that's an extreme case, but like if we cannot grow through seeing our parents in another person, we will leave and repeat our past. Chris Watts had to kill off his mother. He had to get rid of that part of Shannann that was showing her being, what are you doing? Why aren't you calling me back? Blah, blah, blah. All of that was an experience that was a trigger for him that he said it was out of body. Well, what it was he couldn't grow past. He didn't know what to do with an attack from his mother that was bigger than him. He knew how to deal with his mother at this level, but he didn't know how to deal with, you know, why aren't you calling me? What's going on? We need to talk. Because Shannann was just trying to communicate. He was processing it as, oh my God, I've got to do something to help Nicole. Because you see, NK was his next, I want to say, he was the Florence Nightingale to her. He was going to save her. So you have to look at ultimately him seeking different soulmates, but he never got past the healing. Shannann evolved into that. She evolved past it, and yet she had the honor to stay when I believe there was something bigger for her. And honestly, right now, that's where it is. She is a shining example to many of us. So as I say this, I hope this makes sense to you with the difference between a twin flame and a soulmate, and really just a little bit of the differentiation between Chris Watts and Shannann in the soulmate conversation. I really invite you down below to put your comments, but please remember, say what you mean what you say, and don't say it mean. Because the truth is, if you write 7 paragraphs and you're attacking or being mean to me or anyone else on the feed, it's really not an opinion, it's an attack. But if you have an opinion that you think is like, hey, this is what I think, I want to hear it. I love hearing differing opinions. I simply don't appreciate, because I don't think we are in a place where we really need to be unkind to each other anymore. If you like the video, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. And please comment, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you, everybody. Much love.